LBC is a London-based national talk and phone-in radio station. It began broadcasting on October 8, 1973, a week ahead of Capital Radio. The launch of LBC also saw the beginning of IRN's broadcasting, as LBC provided the service to independent local radio stations nationwide. In April 2007, a new marketing slogan for LBC 97.3 was introduced, London's Biggest Conversation, a play on the initials. It was announced in January 2014 that LBC would begin broadcasting nationally on DAB digital radio format at 7 a.m. on February 11, 2014. The news also marked a new slogan, changing from 2007's London's Biggest Conversation to Leading Britain's Conversation, and dropping on-air reference to the London FM frequency. LBC is currently owned by Global Radio and has a like-branded sister station, LBC News 1152, which is dedicated to rolling news and travel and is broadcast in London on medium wave and DAB. Launch. The first presenter at launch on Monday 8 October 1973 at 6 a.m. was David Jessel. Practice broadcasts had started on August 29, 1973. The first bulletin was written by the news editor, later program controller, Keith Belcher, and the first voice on air was Australian expatriate newsreader Ken Guy. The launch attracted considerable attention and a sizable audience, particularly for the pairing of journalist Paul Cullen and the writer Janet Street Porter, who contrived to create a new form of radio, albeit unintentionally. The pair were pitched as co-presenters of The Breakfast Show. The intention was to contrast the urbane Cullen with the less couth Street Porter, whose accents were respectively known to studio engineers as cut glass and cut throat. In the event, friction between the ill-assorted pair led to an entertaining stream of one-upmanship that became required listening for many Londoners, the sharper put-downs being blamed for several collisions by motorists incapacitated with laughter. The programme was the first in the UK to combine interviews with celebrities and heavyweight political figures on the same show, blurring the line between classic British comedy and analysis of international affairs. The original station spawned a number of stars who went on to become household names in the British media. They include Jon Snow, Julian Mannion, Peter Allen, Rosie Boycott, Belle Mooney, amongst others. Entertainment personalities included Jeremy Beadle, who developed a late-night phone-in program, and Mr. Nasty, who argued over the telephone with children. Both went on to star in the Granada television series, Fun Factory. Ownership history: originally owned by a consortium led by the Canadian Selkirk Communications with a 46% stake, LBC was sold in 1987, beginning a turbulent commercial history. The new owners were media company Darling Downs, later renamed Crown Communications, owned by Australian entrepreneur David Haynes. Crown sold the station's original base in Gough Square near Fleet Street in the City of London and relocated to Hammersmith. And in 1989 split the station into two separate services, the News and Comment LBC Crown FM, and the phone-in London Talkback Radio on AM. The transition was not initially well received, and substantially increased costs, pushing the company into the red. Sold on again to Shirley Porter's Chelverton Investments, the company almost disappeared completely in 1993, when the Radio Authority failed to renew the company's two licenses, LBC News Talk and London Talkback Radio, awarding the frequencies instead to London News Radio, a consortium led by former LBC staff and backed by Guinness Mahon. The prospective loss of the franchise brought Chelverton to the brink of collapse, and London News Radio bought LBC to keep it on air until the official handover date of October 1994. London News Radio: from 1994 to 1996, London News Radio operated the station from LBC's former studios in Hammersmith, as London News 97.3, a rolling news and travel information service on the FM band, and the phone-in driven service London News Talk 1152 on the MW band. These names were simplified slightly in mid-1995 to News 97.3 and News Talk 1152 respectively, but between October 1994 and July 1996 the LBC name was not used on air at all. Reuters then brought in additional shareholders, and between 1996 and 2002 LBC was part of London News Radio Limited, a company owned jointly by ITN, Daily Mail and General Trust, Reuters and the GWR Group. This new consortium revived the LBC name on 11:52 a.m. on July 1, 1996. At the end of 1996 the FM service was relaunched as News Direct 97.3 fathoms. Production for the station was moved to the basement of ITN's new multimedia building in Gray's Inn Road. Chrysalis. In 2002 the company was bought for £23.5 million by the media company Chrysalis, who trumpeted their purchase with the promise that they would lift the listenership to at least 1 million from around 700,000. Production was moved to Chrysalis's base in North Kensington, and the formatting of the two frequencies was swapped, the talk format moving to FM and the news format to AM. But an array of presenters including Boy George, Henry Kelly, Caroline Faraday, Dr. Pam Spur, and Sandy Toksvig, plus an array of on-air gimmicks and two managing directors, saw the audience remain largely static. LBC's 97.3 fathoms' increase in audience has been at the expense of its AM service. In 2005, the station's managing director Mark Flanagan left Chrysalis to set up a political consultancy company and was replaced by David Lloyd. Some claimed he held no previous experience in the talk and chat radio genre, which overlooked the almost 2 years he spent with the Century FM brand in its Border TV ownership days where the station was a 50/50 music talk service. Lloyd introduced a number of program changes to mixed reactions. These included a drive time slot presented by Ian Lee, a daily big quiz which promises huge cash prizes, and a number of weekend repeats. He also introduced a podcasting service, now called LBC Plus, and a number of premium-rate promotional opportunities to boost falling advertising revenues experienced by the radio sector. Since September 2006 the LBC 97.3 station has been available in other parts of the country on the digital DAB platform, after Chrysalis bought out its partners and closed the digital news network rolling news station that had previously been carried on the MXA multiplex. Each multiplex region the North West, West Midlands, Yorkshire, North East, South Wales and the West broadcasts the London LBC transmission, augmented with reduced bulletins of regional news and information. Global Radio. In February 2007, Chrysalis confirmed media speculation that it was reviewing the entire radio operation at its investors' request. Further media speculation from The Guardian suggested that the group had little option, due to shareholder pressure, to sell its radio arm, including LBC, raising up to £200 million for new acquisitions, while the Daily Telegraph suggested that it could be the subject of a management buyout. Subsequently it was announced on June 25, 2007 that LBC along with its sister stations the Arrow, Heart and Galaxy Network were to be sold for £170 million to Global Radio by the Chrysalis Group, whose Chrysalis radio operation closed down. In December 2008 the station moved to the Capital London studios in Leicester Square. Towards the end of October 2012, the station ceased DAB broadcasts to some other parts of the country. As a non-specific talk channel, available for listener contributions, this has proved an unpopular move as social media sites suggest. On January 30, 2014, LBC announced its return to the DAB digital radio format and starts broadcasting from February 11, 2014. Upon launch it took up the slot previously occupied by Jazz FM, and has dropped the 97.3 from the station name. LBC Radio announced a change to their weekend lineup starting on March 22, 2014. Presenters, talk show presenters, news readers, reporters, travel presenters and reporters. Past presenters. Past LBC presenters include Adrian Allen, Carol Allen, Dominic Allen, Mike Allen, Toby Anstis, Dickie Arbiter, Tarazam, Philip Bacon, Bill Bailey, David Bassett, Emma Barnett, Jenai Barnetta, Simon Bates, Jeremy Beadle, Alison Bell, Bill Bingham, Therese Birch, Frank Bow, Tommy Boyd, Gilles Brandreth, Bill Buckley, Paul Callan, Douglas Cameron, Mike Carlton, Andrew Carnegie, Mike Carson, Claire Catford, Marcus Churchill, Nick Conrad, Andy Crane, Jamie Crick, Joan O'Coleman, Steve Crozier, Tim Crook, Gino D'Acampo, Dan Damon, Peter Dealey, Anne Diamond, Mike Ditkeen, Richard Dolan, Jenny Eclair, Richard Fairbrous, Caroline Faraday, John Forrest, Maria Frostrup, George Gale, Krishnan Guru Murthy, Boy George, Charlie Gibson, Charles Golding, Angie Greaves, Eric Hall, Bob Harris, Brian Hayes, Chris Hawkins, Philip Hodson, Bob Honus, Eamon Holmes, John Holmes, Fred Hujago, Rufus Hound, Howard Hughes, Sue Jameson, Bob Johnson, Bryn Jones, Steve Jones, Barry Jordan, Charlie Jordan, Leslie Judd, Henry Kelly, Alan King, Gary King, Jenny Lacey, Ian Lee, Richard Littlejohn, Wendy Lloyd, Sir Nicholas Lloyd, Adrian Love, Dave Luddy, Kelvin Mackenzie, Richard McNee, James Max, Mike Mendoza, Daisy McAndrew, Rod Lucas, Carol McGiffin, Monty Modlin, Nathan Morley, Douglas Moffitt, Belle Mooney, Jane Moore, Elliot Moss, Pete Murray, Paddy O'Connell, Rod Lucas, Tom Parker Bowles, Michael Parkinson, Frank Partridge, John Perkins, David Prever, Martin Popluel, Gil Pirar, Anna Rehaban, John Richards, Angela Rippon, Roland Riven, Richard Robbins, Paul Ross, Kenny Sansom, Adrian Scott, Valerie Singleton, Penny Smith, John Snow, Julia Somerville, Lawrence Spicer, Dr. Pam Spur, Lee Stevens, Janet Street Porter, Peter Stringfellow, Carol Thatcher, Sandy Tokesvik, Petrock Trelawney, Michael Van Stritten, Robbie Vincent, Becky Walsh, Sandy Waugh, James Whale, Brian Woodlake, James Williams, Matthew Wright, and Martin Young. Guest presenters, people who have hosted one-off or temporary shows while regular presenters were away include Help a London Child. Help a London Child was founded in 1975 by Richard Attenborough CBE at Capital Radio. It is a grant-giving charity which twice a year provides practical support to groups working with those aged 18 and under. In the first year £8,000 was raised and grants given to 10 charities in Camden. Over 34 years since then, the charity has raised over £20 million, helping over 1 million children. Grants are awarded to refuge and homelessness projects and to support groups for children and young people with a disability, special need or an illness, as well as to a range of sports, music, drama and leisure activities, holiday place schemes and residential breaks in the UK, cultural activities, supplementary schools, and literacy programmes. Help a London Child is also working in partnership with London sports bodies to identify the need, and the groups and agencies required to deliver FS4A. It was the winner of Outstanding Contribution to London Lifestyle at the London Lifestyle Awards. In January 2011, the charity became known as Help a Capital Child and is still supported by Capital London and now by its sister station at Global Radio, LBC 97.3. Podcasting. LBC claimed to be the first radio station in the world to provide full-length podcasts for all its major shows, plus podcast-only shows and other things such as backstage interviews and MP3s sent to the show, under the name LBC Plus. Most podcasts require a small subscription fee, but some shows, including best of programs, podcast-only shows and bite-sized versions of programs, are free. Tony Blair appearance. On January 13, 2004, the then British Prime Minister Tony Blair presented an hour-long phone-in show on the station, taking pre-booked calls from LBC 97.3 listeners. His appearance was part of the Big Conversation initiative to promote government as being more accessible and in touch with the people. During the 10:00-11:00 show, a caller explained that he'd been denied access to his children for 5 years and asked what Mr. Blair was planning to do about other fathers in a similar situation. The Prime Minister assured the caller he would look into his case personally. It later transpired that the caller was in fact Fathers for Justice member Ron Davies, who in May of that year was arrested for entering Parliament and throwing a condom containing purple powder over Mr. Blair and nearby cabinet members. Mr. Davies claimed the attack was in response to the Prime Minister's failure to contact him or look into the matters discussed on LBC 97.3. Ken Livingstone appearances. During his tenure as London Mayor, Ken Livingstone was a regular guest on LBC 97.3, appearing usually once per month on the Nick Ferrari Breakfast Show. During the show he took calls from LBC listeners and discussed points put to him by Ferrari. It became something of a running joke that the mayor usually arrived late, blaming it on the public transport. Livingstone's phone-in sessions alternated between LBC and BBC London 94.9 and were one of the rare opportunities that Londoners had of talking directly to the then London mayor. After losing the 2008 mayoral election, Livingstone began his own Saturday morning programme on LBC, on August 30, 2008. He stood down in March 2012 to concentrate on running for London Mayor again, and was replaced by the former Labour Home Secretary Jackie Smith. At present, he co-hosts a slot on Saturday mornings with David Mellor. Jenai Barnett and MMR vaccine controversy. The radio station became involved in the MMR vaccine controversy after a broadcast by Jenai Barnett on January 7, 2009 in which she debated the putative dangers of MMR vaccine with callers. It became the subject of media controversy, first because her views were criticised as irresponsible by medical journalist Dr. Ben Goldacre, and then because LBC and Global Radio threatened legal action against Goldacre for copyright infringement after he refused to remove the audio of the show from his blog, which resulted in its being made available at WikiLeaks and elsewhere and the preparation of transcripts of the broadcast. David Aaronovitch in The Times argued for a class action against LBC for permitting a presenter to inflict her preposterous prejudices on her listeners, to the detriment of someone else's kids. Norman Lamb MP tabled an early day motion criticising Barnett and LBC for the likely effect of the broadcast on public health. References. External links, LBC official site, History of LBC, Another History of LBC, including the original 1973 schedule, LBC, from 1973 to today, The Guardian, December 4, 2002, year-by-year ownership and management details, Tim Crook, The History and Development of Independent Radio Journalism in Britain, January 1998, Brian Hayes, LBC, You Could Have Been a Contender, The Guardian, October 1, 2003, John Plunkett, Stars Reflect on 30 Years of LBC, The Guardian, October 1, 2003, Vincent Graff, How We Beat the BBC, The Independent. October 14, 2003, Audience Figures for LBC 97.3 and LBC News 1152, 1999 2008, Global Radio, The Parent Company, website about the new text number 84850. Media UK profile.